So welcome to Who Gives a Vote week 3 of the election. It's pretty exciting. We're down to days now. We have Stuart Taylor, Carly Hahn, Sotera Travascus, George Seymour. Guys, welcome back. George, before we start, do you have any disclaimers?
Yes,
that you wish to
this
make?
is how the council meetings always start. I have been a member of the Australian Labor Party for most of my life, and I'm also the mayor of the Fraser Coast Regional Council, and I don't speak on behalf of either of them here.
Do you have to declare that you're a member at the start of every council meeting?
No. Oh, we would only if we had an agenda item. Well, we have the disclosures of interest. If there was an agenda item that created conflict, I would.
Yep. Okay. Also, I work for an organisation which is funded by the Australian government, and my views that I express today are my own and not representative of the Australian government or RDA, who I work for.
RDA. Now, what does RDA mean?
Regional Development Australia.
And what's your role in there?
I'm the director there.
So what's their view on politics? No, I won't.
We're independent.
They're
Yes.
independent.
We will work with all levels of government, regardless of their colour.
It's like that show Utopia.
Yeah,
Yes,
very,
yes.
very independent.
Yeah, except I don't get to work with Carsten.
Yeah.
Sonic Boom.
Yeah. Carly, welcome back.
Hi.
You enjoying it?
Yes.
A lot of fun?
Yes.
Do you have anything to declare?
No, nothing to declare.
No, nor do I. So let's get into it. We've only got we're going to finish in about half an hour because, George, what have you got on?
Today is the first round of the new season of pickleball. The fastest growing sport in Australia. More politicians should play pickleball. I think if either the leaders of Albanese or Dutton got involved in pickleball, it would actually boost their standing.
Make them more
Absolutely.
appealing.
Yeah, it would.
Oh.
So is it more important than football or?
Absolutely. I think so. Much higher participation growth in
Yeah.
pickleball than any other sport.
So, yeah, anyone
lot of
who...
fun.
Yeah, so
Harvey Bay Pickleball
I would
Club.
love to see
each-
Albanese and Dutton have a pickleball game
Yeah.
against each other, and Toto can be the dog ball grabbing. Thing.
I would prefer UFC, like some mixed martial arts.
That'd
or-
be interesting.
Yeah,
It'd be less comedic though.
That'd be pretty cool. Hey, before we get on to our topics, there is something we probably should mention. It's significant for our community, our local, national and international community, and particularly those people who have a faith of Catholicism, and that's the passing of the Pope. It's quite significant, George.
Yeah, absolutely. This will impact the election. Obviously, a death of an international figure, a figure of one of the leading faith-based figures in the world, will change the momentum of the campaign. To have this at this stage, that's what the news is going to be about for the next few days. That impacts Dutton a lot more than anyone else. He needs to build momentum after this long Easter break, knowing that we're going to go into Anzac Day. To have this entire week will now be taken up, first of all with the news of the death, and then you'll get into speculation in terms of funeral issues as well as the conclave. So it's it doesn't impact the direction directly, but it certainly changes the landscape for the campaign.
But so we're talking about we're within 20 days of an election. In that time, within 6 days, the Pope needs to be buried. So there needs to be a funeral within 6 days by Vatican law. Every sort of significant leader in the world will be invited. That's significant considering that we're in the middle of election, and the news cycle not only is going to be taken up by that, but you might find that a leader might have to leave the country and go to that funeral. Anthony Albanese would go. We'd probably invite Dutton. Is that how it would normally work, you reckon?
I saw news today that they're looking at the Governor General going.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, during a caretaker period that would
Yeah.
normally.
And Keith Pitt will already be there.
obviously,
So
I'd like to go back to Keith Pitt in our next episode because that is the curious case of Keith Pitt and how he managed to be in the Vatican now and the representative of the Holy See. So that's quite remarkable. But we acknowledge all those people who place value on the Pope. And
very remarkable man. I think it's the 266th Pope, one of the most consequential of them. Got very, very strong views
Quite
on
progressive,
climate change, obviously refugees, and
yeah, he was the
very
most
remarkable.
progressive Pope on that's ever been. I remember waiting at the QE2 at the time to see Pope John Paul II. We waited all day to see him for 1 hour and give mass, and it still has an impression on me as a very young kid going through that. So I can imagine that he certainly would be influencing a lot of people. But let's move on to politics because you've got pickleball to get to. Sotera, this is a topic that's sort of you're passionate about, you wanted to talk about. It it doesn't really have a local feel to it, but every person needs to understand the Senate. So people are going to vote now and they have to have some understanding of how the Senate works.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I'm such a political nerd, I wanted to share this because it's a good opportunity to educate people who are watching. So the Senate is one of the two houses in the Australian Parliament, and the way that the elections are run, and Stuart, you've got that up there on the screen, is different from how we elect the House of Representatives. There are 76 elected senators across the state. I think you were saying that we're saying there's 12 from each state and 2 from each territory. And every 6 years they all become re-elected, but every 3 years half the Senate goes to an election. And that's where we're at the moment.
So it's important to identify one thing here is that when we talk about the Queensland, the federal Senate with the Queensland candidates, I guess, that's different to the Queensland Senate because we don't have a Senate in the state, do we?
That's right.
Yeah, the Legislative Council.
Yeah.
So
the
room is still there, but yeah, the Suicide Squad destroyed it, got rid of it. It was unelected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
the mayor of Maryborough, Billy Domain, was one of the ones who did that.
Yeah.
Very important for democracy. It was basically an old men's club, a gentleman's club that was stopping the democratic government from achieving what it needed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, known as that rubber stamp or a house that blocks.
An unrepresentative swill.
Yeah.
So there is that difference. We are talking about the federal campaign, and it's every 3 years. The Senate does not have to. The election for the Senate doesn't have to happen at the same time as the federal election, but since 1974 it has. So there's not been an occasion in my lifetime, or any of your lifetimes, that the Senate and the House has been voted at a different time, but it can.
Yeah, if you go really early and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Did you want to talk about the composition of the Senate?
Yeah. So this is how it's currently, the Australian Senate's currently sitting, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So we have 24 Labor, 30 Coalition, 11 Greens, 2 One Nation, the one Jackie Lambie Network.
Who's that? Who's a member of that group?
Yeah, that's right. I'll give you a guess. A United Party, and then there's 6 independents. Are there 6 independents?
Well, that would have to include Jared Rennick and a few other people like that.
Interestingly,
the one Western Australia, Senator Payne should be in the independents now, presumably.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone the other day that thought that Bob Katter was a senator. I think because he's
has such a national profile. He's kind of personality you would expect in the Senate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. So then when you break that down into those, and as we said, every 3 years half the Senate is voted again. They have to be re-elected. So there is half the Senate effectively what's over because the territories have to happen every election.
Yep.
But for the states, it's half of those, and that's a collective group of 40 people or seats that are up for grabs. And this is the makeup. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, so you take out the ACT and the Northern Territory, and the rest is a reflection of the 2019 election when people thought Bill Shorten had a really good chance, but in the end, obviously Labor, particularly in Queensland didn't deliver for Labor that year. You can see there's only one senator, which is really unusual for a major party in any state. In 2007, Queensland won 3. Labor won 3 in Queensland with Mark Ferner. In 2019, that was pretty historic to come back with just 1. And that was because the LNP got 3, One Nation got 1, and the Greens got 1.
Yep.
But you can expect, I think Labor will get 2 this time.
So if we're looking at those who are facing election, it's important to see the composition of those that are remaining as well. So when you look at who's continuing on, you see there that it's a little bit closer between Labor and the Coalition, isn't it? Like as far as the representation of those staying on, you've got 13 to 14. So there is a real good opportunity here for Labor to pick up, do you reckon 1 or 2?
Yeah, well, in the Queensland, Labor will pick up 1. So Nita Green, she's going to get elected. She's number 1. And Corinne Mulholland is almost certainly going to pick up the numbers 2 spot. They're not going to... the sort of the LNP and sort of the right are defending in Queensland. They're not going to keep 4.
they're not going to increase their number. When
No.
if we went back and had a look at that, that's pretty clear.
Yeah, so that sixth spot in Queensland, it'll be between One Nation, the Greens, and another party, perhaps Jared Rennick, who I think is running a very good grassroots campaign, at least on the ground.
Yeah.
You see signs up for him up everywhere.
And you made the comment earlier, it's unusual for a Senate candidate to have signs, you know,
Yeah,
across the state.
yeah, for Jared Rennick, who otherwise doesn't have a massive profile, for him to have signs up in Hervey Bay and Maryborough, and to be running candidates in other seats like Flynn, it'd be interesting to see how that goes.
Having all these little
Yeah.
rallies that he's been
Yeah.
having.
Yeah.
And he's got quite a big following on social
Yeah.
media too, I think.
He does,
Yeah, so that will be a really interesting side sort of result about where he goes compared to the Malcolm from One Nation, with that, how that sort of very far right wing vote ends up, as well as Palmer in there, you know,
Yeah.
really linking itself with Trump. It's going to be there's a lot of candidates competing for that right wing vote.
Yeah. And then if we look at I wanted to have a look at the party representation, because there are some, like if you look at some of the parties, and I mean, we've got the Socialist Alliance, the Trumpeter Patriots, the Indigenous Aboriginal Party of Australia. This one's a cool one, the Fusion Planet Rescue, Whistleblowers Protection Innovation.
Yeah, and everybody can find something in there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
if you're not for
It's
innovation,
diverse.
at least you're for a planet rescue. Yeah.
my question is, when did Jackie Lambie become a network? The Jackie Lambie Network. When she was, I guess, doing some, some chatting of coming up with a name. Why
Yeah.
network?
Yeah.
She's looking to expand. She did have
Well,
she did have a +1 for a while, didn't she? Or she
For a while, because she was knocked out because of citizenship issues, so there was another person who was
Yeah.
put in her place for a while. But yeah, just I guess if you don't want to be a political party, you want to be a network. It's but obviously it is a registered political party.
So it is a
maybe it
political
sounds more
Yeah.
powerful.
Well,
than
yeah, and
a
it just
network
sounds a
rather
bit
than
more informal and a bit more.
It sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Yeah.
The network.
Yeah.
No, I'm not interested. Thank you. I've already bought from Amway.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've got your 5 friends already
Yeah.
signed
Yeah.
up.
So you got the Catters Australia Party, the Australian Democrats, the LNP. I've heard of them. And then we missed one, didn't we? We might have to go back, but let's. I think there's some more, but we've probably. It's after this. We'll go through the quota. So understanding how the system works, Sotera.
Yeah, and look, I don't always get this right, even though I'm a political nerd, but you can see on the screen there, it's a total formal vote divided by the number of seats +1. And we were saying, we worked it out, so it's 14.3%.
Yeah, at a half Senate. Yeah.
At a half Senate, around 28%. A full Senate. Is that right?
Oh no,
No,
for
no.
a full Senate, it's about seven.
it goes
Oh,
seven,
it drops
yeah.
it down, that's right.
Yeah. So to win one seat in Queensland right now, so you'd have to get 14.3% of the vote to
Unless you're
get one
the
seat.
unless you're the sixth and final candidate,
Yeah.
which
So
you can end up with less. Yeah.
yeah. So you need to get 14.3% for your first candidate, and then if you get say 20%, you're that additional 5.7% goes. Your preferences get distributed
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you don't make the next
Totally.
threshold of 28 point. So if you can get 3 times 14.3, you get 3 candidates. If you get 1.5, your preferences are then are passed on to the others and hope that they will pick up the additional.
Or your
portion.
half could end up with their preferences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is how we got a few wildcard Senate members a few years back.
But they did change that. They've changed some of that. I think before then it was that the quota system was different. That someone with 2 or 3% could potentially pick up.
Yes.
So they have tightened it up, but it does show you why there's such a variety of parties in the Senate race, because they can pick up preferences from others, can't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if, for example, if Labor they don't want to preference all of the right wing parties, their second preference is probably going to go to a left leaning, if not Green, is going to go to a left leaning side. So there's a chance that they'll pick up all the Labor leftovers or the Greens leftover votes when they don't make a quota.
I think we need to be really clear, though, when we talk about preferencing the voter casts the preferences.
Not in the Senate.
Not in the Senate.
No, in the Senate. Well, you can vote above the line.
That's right. That's what I'm
And
talking
then,
about.
and then your vote actually, because people always say that your preferences are for you, but for the
Yes.
Senate, if you vote above the line, they're not.
That's right. The ballot paper has.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
massive.
vote below the line.
Do you
Yeah,
really?
yeah, and sometimes you might vote to like 97 or something because I know the individual candidates running for say Labor.
Wow.
And I
You
might
only have
want
to vote to 12, don't you?
Yeah.
12 or more
Yeah.
below the line.
Yeah, okay,
So-
so yeah.
Yeah, so 12
I expend my vote. I spend
it's a
the
lot
whole
of
time,
fun.
and yeah,
That is excellent.
But you've got to be prepared because you make a mistake.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
I've-
can't if you have two 95s. Yeah, it's a problem.
I've gone and made a mistake and had to go back and ask
Yeah.
for another paper, and like they think you're trying to rob
Yeah.
them or something. It's fraud.
Yeah, there would be a
Yeah.
real process
fraud.
in destroying
Yeah,
a ballot paper.
That's
yeah.
right. So, but I had to because I was looking at it going, if I was scrutineering this, I'd probably throw this one out too. So you know, if someone's not accustomed to voting or doing that preferences or willing to take the time, vote above the line.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think you've got to. Do you have to vote to 1 to 6 now above the line?
Oh, okay.
Or
I
you
didn't
can
know
do
that.
one?
I thought you can just do one. Yeah.
You can just do one.
Can you check
Yeah.
that?
Can.
We might check that for next week because
Yeah.
I know that, for example, Labor's preference, they've got 1 to 6. They've actually put 1 to 6 as a preference.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check that up.
But the how to vote card would just say vote one.
Yeah, I thought you had to vote
Mhm.
6, but I could be wrong. It used to be last election it was 1, or you
Mhm.
could vote, but I think it might be 1 or 6 or more.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Let's clear this up next week.
yeah, let's make it
Good
more
call.
obscure. Yeah. So the election commitments, I wanted to quickly go through those. We actually, I think we lost a slide there, and it was just some of the other parties because you had Pauline Hanson's, the Greens, the Cannabis Party, Family First, Animal Justice Party, the Citizens Party, the Great Australian Party and Heart Party, the Australian Labor Party, and then who do we have left?
Sustainable Australia Party, Universal Basic Income, Libertarians, and Ungrouped.
Yeah, so they're the
Mhm.
independents.
There's the birthday party.
That was Kanye's.
Was it really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So let's look at some of the election commitments, and I want to preface this by saying that when we're talking about local election commitments, and we've done this table, we've used a fairly broad brush to at least try and
Yeah.
fill the table, because some of them, you know, they see as like the parties would see as local commitments, but they are very much national commitments that have a local impact. So let's have a look at the Flynn. Carly, did you want to take us through this one? Or it's probably up on the screen if you want to have a...
All right, Flynn. Election and commitments for Flynn. Labor have got commitments of the Bruce Highway between Gladstone and Maryborough, the hydrogen industry, and Boyne smelter support. Coalition have got Regional Futures Fund, nuclear energy, and Angel Flight expansion.
So there's not really a lot there, is there, that other than the Bruce Highway you'd say is a real local, and the Boyne smelter, is that
Yeah.
in Flynn?
Yes, it is.
So it seems like Labor in that regard is really, they've got an Angel Flight is again, it's not just for Flynn, but certainly the Bruce Highway, and you'll see that through all of the Wide Bay and
I think
and
Angel
Hinkler.
Flight might have like one of their big
Mhm.
stations where they all
Yeah, yeah, well,
park and do their stuff.
yeah, but
there.
it impacts the whole.
yeah,
of
it
regional
impacts the
Queensland, yeah.
whole. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if we look at Hinkler, so we've got the barge ramp at River Heads for Labor. We've got the Buyback Australian campaign for local manufacturing, the Bruce Highway upgrade. What's for the Coalition, Carly?
Coalition have various local sporting and community projects and Medicare mental health rebates.
Yes, that's right. Any comments on those? Pretty boring.
Yeah.
They're pretty boring. I mean, that would be very much. I remember when I was on council, that barge ramp upgrade was a significant issue for council
Mhm.
and also for users of or businesses connected to Gari.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people.
And
that
just
if we lost it,
yeah.
that would be pretty ropeable. I mean, imagine if we didn't have access to Gari because
Yeah.
the boat ramp was no longer safe.
I do note that Labor put Fraser Island on their election stuff, so
Ah.
it should be Gari. But yeah, so and I probably should have picked that up as well. But it is Gari, and for those who don't know it as Gari, it's Fraser Island. Yep.
Or, as Captain Cook called it, Great Sandy Cape.
Did he?
Yeah. He didn't call it Fraser Island. So, people who want to go back to, an earlier
nitty-gritty of
one,
it.
yeah. Great Sandy Cape. And then when they realized there was an island, Great Sandy Island.
Yes.
Cool.
So, there's, of all the different names, Fraser Island wasn't the first European one.
Either.
Yeah. And it probably, I'm not sure how long it was called Great Sandy Island, but a long time.
Yeah.
So we have about 2 minutes to get through the next two ones. Carly, did you want to race through both of those two?
All right. We've got Wide Bay, Labour, Fraser Island access upgrade, Bruce
We
Highway.
did change that to the various sporting community facilities, the same as the coalition.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
That is true.
Yep.
Infrastructure, the local road and community infrastructure fund, and health, mental health rebates restoration.
Yes, and how important is the we'll go to that. Let's go through the Maranoa ones.
Maranoa, for Labour, we've got health, new urgent care clinics, industry, Buy Australian campaign for local manufacturing, infrastructure, Bruce Highway upgrade, Gympie to Maryborough section. The coalition, we have live sheet export reinstatement, regional futures fund, and angel flight expansion.
I don't think the Bruce Highway is in Maranoa.
It's not.
Gympie to Maryborough.
Yeah, well, that's. Well, it does. It does. Is it no go through?
No, that's Wide Bay.
Yeah, it's Maranoa's way out.
Like
west.
Roma. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you do have here for Maranoa is live sheep export
Yeah.
support, regional futures fund, angel flight. So
Yeah.
perhaps there was a...
Yeah. Well, and that's again a national a national issue. I actually think that despite the Bruce Highway upgrade is probably the most significant of all those for regional Queensland, even for the likes of Maranoa, particularly if you've got those trucks coming in and out of that area as well. They use it. I'm trying to draw. I'm trying to.
There's a lot of roads that are
My
been
brain is
flooded for
fried.
weeks in Maranoa. But
I've
Bruce
been-
Highway is not one of them.
I've been through a few of them,
Well, you forgot. You're the one who visited Maranoa. Yeah.
right.
Tell it.
and I did use the Bruce Highway.
Let's move on to the Hinkler debate.
Yeah. Well, so I guess there's not a lot there, is there?
No, but I think that's the
The
sign
nature
of
of-
the times where we're in. It's a no frills budget campaign. They're trying to anchor it to local stuff to make things relatable. There's not a lot around.
And if you're talking Hinkler and Maranoa, Wide Bay, they're pretty safe seats. So you're lucky to be announcing anything, really.
Yep. So moving on to the Hinkler Meet the Candidates or the debate, whichever one you want to say. You do have David, Trish and Kerry. So you have, Kerry's the independent, isn't she? Yep. I know she's family
No.
No,
first.
she's family first.
Family first. And then you have Labor and the
It's
coalition.
pretty disappointed showing. How many are not going?
Are they, it makes me go, are they serious contenders if they're not going to be here? And if so, they're ignoring half their electorate.
Yeah, so the
Well,
One Nation's not coming.
Yeah.
You've got an independent, the Greens,
Yeah.
and
Trumpet of Patriots.
Trumpet of Patriot. So
Good-
that's
good
because
recovery.
there are 7 candidates. So there's 4 not attending. That's just rubbish. Yeah, it's good on at least. Yeah, it's good to see Trish and David coming down from Bundaberg. Maybe the others just felt it was an hour and a half too long to drive and they had to go home. But yeah,
And it really confirms the existing feeling amongst a lot of people in Hervey Bay is that they're second rate compared to Bundaberg.
Yeah, and that's not a good narrative, I think. Because if you
Yeah.
are elected in this position, they're obviously going to be working from across
Yeah.
the region, but it's not a good thing.
It would be interesting to see if there was a Hervey Bay candidate and they were just saying everybody else is Bundaberg. The electorate office has always been Bundaberg. I'm from Hervey Bay. How well they would do?
so is Kerry
I
Pat?
don't know.
She's from Torbenlee, I thought.
Oh, okay, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, from memory, I'm
Mhm.
like I think she
Okay.
attends one of the local churches up there.
Well, she would do well to make
promote that.
promote that
Yeah.
as being from the southern area of Hinkler.
But having said that, when you look at the information that's provided on the website, it's shocking. It just says Kerry's running for the visions of, and then it just goes. It barely says her last name, and I just think that's it's very poor. Even on the websites of all of the candidates, there's nothing about the candidates. It's all about the broader picture. And
Do you
I
mean nothing
It's copy
personal?
pasted.
yeah, there's nothing that sort of
I
except
think David's been trying to do a bit of that. He used to
Yeah.
be a policeman. His
Yeah,
family's here. He
to
cleans
ta-
at the church.
on that point, One Nation also provide a bit more context
Yeah.
on the person but the others certainly haven't. You know, he's a chartered accountant? Is he accountant or
mortgage broker?
Mortgage broker in Bundaberg, and obviously he must be working because he can't come down for a Meet the Candidates night.
And I heard some good feedback about the Bundaberg Meet the Candidates, that out of the people that spoke, he spoke the best.
Yeah.
Knew small business, understood the Australian financial system. Just the questions that he answered were with ease. So,
well, he would do well to turn up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would say it's not too late. I would say you probably need to be there.
Yep,
I'd be interested. We could reach out to the chamber and ask him why only 3 people. Have they only got 3 microphones? I don't know. It may not be his fault. Maybe he wasn't invited. You never know.
I think that we can rule that out.
Yeah.
I think he
The
was
3
invited.
microphones?
Yes. No, that he wasn't. I'm sure they invited him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Either that or they don't back themselves to talk publicly.
Well, he did in Bundaberg.
That's what I'm saying. Like if he does in Bundaberg, he should be able to do it here.
Yeah. We're getting a bit local here, aren't we? The other part I wanted to bring up was this article in the Courier Mail today. One Nation preferences switch to save Dutton. Now, the actual Carly, do you want to read this out for us?
The Courier Mail reported, One Nation is coming to Peter Dutton's rescue with a last-minute switch preferencing the Liberals' second in key seats where the coalition is under threat or has a chance of beating Labor or an independent. The party, headed by Queensland Senator Pauline Hanson, is authorising the reprinting of how-to-vote cards in at least 10 marginal electorates. The coalition desperately needs to win. That the coalition desperately needs to win. More are under review to determine if they would benefit from One Nation preference flows.
So that's a real interesting part of it, isn't it? Like they've made a decision on the 11th hour to switch preferences in 10 different seats, one of them being Dutton's seat. And the article goes on further, and they've said they're blaming the trumpeter patriots who have split the vote and put Conservatives at risk, and for that reason they've gone back and reshuffled.
What are they getting in return, I wonder?
But surely they would have known that before. That argument would stack up if they didn't know. They would know who all the candidates are. So how is this news to them? Why are they doing this in the 11th hour?
I don't know, sounds like a last-minute deal.
Do you have any ideas?
Well, who were they preferencing before? I just can't imagine One Nation would preference Labor ahead of LNP anyway.
No, that's well. I think they were putting trumpets.
Yeah.
I think so. It sounds
it's the same thing. If you put trumpets, it just depends where you put LNP compared to Labor. If you put LNP 5th and Labor 6th, the vote's going to go to the LNP.
So it sounds to me like this is the excuse for the stoush that between One Nation and one and the trumpeter patriots maybe have had. They've realised that there might be at risk of losing seats to the trumpets. I don't think they would be.
No.
But
I don't think they would be.
Yeah.
No.
But what else? Why else would you change your preferences? Like why they've done a preference deal with somebody in those seats to get theirs, because in those seats the LNP, like the 2 previous elections, they put One Nation down below. For all of those ones, the LNP have put the One Nation as second.
Yeah, well, I think we saw that in the Queensland election. A lot of the seats were won with the preferences from One Nation flowing through to LNP seats. So my question is, are these 10 electorates nationally, or are we talking about just in Queensland? I'm not clear on that, sorry.
Well, I haven't got the article, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's 10 electorates across Australia would be.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've
Well,
identified.
it might just save Dutton's skin.
Well, it's mostly Queensland where One Nation will have many votes to give anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. I'm not sure how many votes One Nation gets in South Australia.
Yeah.
I think is there a daughter running in Tasmania? So, you don't know where they're trying to make arrangements for the Senate.
Yeah, that's right. So moving on, because we do have a time. Pickleball
Yeah,
is
pickleball.
waiting. So moving on. I did choose a cartoon. I actually thought this one was pretty interesting, and it's from the Courier Mail, and it's an Easter egg one. And there it is, preferences. Dutton's going one, an orange one, a yellow one, a teal one, and Albo's going a green one, a green one, a green one, and
So
it relates to the preferences. I guess my question is, do you think that that the blanket green preference that Labor's given is going to cause them any issue, or is it just...
No. Albanese there is in much better position than Dutton in terms of governing and getting elected. To be working to sort of, and we're talking a bit about before about all the right-wing teams, and there's not a lot of left-wing teams. For Dutton to, have to liaise and it perhaps in the end work with the Greens or work with them in the campaign is a lot easier than Dutton. Sorry, I said Dutton before. Than Dutton having to work with the Teals, Trumpeter Patriots, One Nation, Jared Rennick, all these other things getting pulled. And you see that right now with, Colin Boyce saying stuff right now, which Peter Dutton would not want Teal voters in Melbourne hearing about. You've got him trying to get preferences, in Perth and inner city that he would not want people in Maranoa to hear about. So Dutton's, that's a real problem. And it's always a problem for the LNP trying to win seats back in Melbourne and Sydney at the same time as appeal to their supporters in regional Queensland.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, people are expecting it, aren't they? They're not expecting the blanket Green preference. Sure, they've tried to distance themselves a little bit regarding forming government, but at the end of the day, people are expecting it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you wouldn't expect the Greens to preference the LNP
Exactly.
on, when climate change is a major issue for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Carly, you're going to talk about odds next week, but what have you got from your hot off the press in relation to what are the betting agencies just generally? What are they telling us?
There's only been a slight change in Dixon for Dutton. I noticed, even though the preference deal has gone down, it's only changed a few cents really so far, and I would have thought that something would change. Quite drastic, maybe potentially drastically, the odds, but no, it hasn't, and that isn't for LNP, ALP, or the Teal that's running there. Hasn't really changed much at all. The polls, like looking at all the polls, Labor is creeping ahead, but polls, I don't know, polls are important, but they are a national thing. They're not electorate-based, and electorates are what wins an election. That's what forms a government.
And they're not predictions. They're just a snapshot in time. But the thing is, the polls are now being taken while people are voting.
Yeah.
People voted today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So polls now become an actual reflection of a moment in time when people have been into the ballot box.
Yeah.
So just quick two questions to you. Who do you think's going to win, and are they going to win enough seats to govern in their own right?
I think it would be fair to say that Dutton's in a little bit of strife. It's likely that the ALP will win. They will form government. It's still looking like a minority government, but there is a chance that they could form a majority government as well. The momentum's going that way, but as you look back to when, the year that Shorten was a sure thing, that collapsed. So you never say never.
Yep. Sotera, what do you think?
I don't know. I can never pick the gender of a child when a friend's pregnant, so I can barely pick how the election's going to go.
That's
the election, baby.
Both are 50-50, but one's a little bit more complicated. So let's hear it.
I think it's going to be a mixed parliament. I think it's going to be pretty close, and that there'll be some coalitions made, not the LNP coalition. So I'd be keen to see how that lands.
Yep.
I actually don't think Greens are going to do as well as what I've been hearing. But I could be out of touch. I'm not sure.
Right. Pickleball's waiting.
Yeah, Labor's going to get a majority, I think. Obviously, all the parties want to say that it's going to be close, and I think it will be close. You have them all making different things, like the Trumpeter Patriots saying their leader's future prime minister. Dutton's got an yeah, it is. Dutton's got an interest in saying it's close, and so does Albanese. They don't want people saying there's going to be a protest vote. Everybody wants to say it's going to be close, but I think as it goes forward, something really would have to change dramatically.
It'd have to be
Dutton.
like a John Hewson cake incident or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for Dutton, the chances of Dutton becoming prime minister at the end of this are, that just narrowing to something big would really have to happen.
Which is a complete inverse of what he was polling like November last year.
I think Labor wins, and they win with 2 to 3 seats spare, and I think it's Greens that'll suffer the most in this election.
Yeah.
And then a quick yes or no for my last question for everyone. Does Dutton lose his seat?
No.
I say yes, he does.
Does he lose the leadership?
Yes.
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 Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
The next leader won't be Dutton.
Yeah. And our next episode, which is we always change anyway. But what do you
Let
reckon?
me check Monday.
Do you reckon we could do Monday, the 28th of April, or are we looking at something else?
I don't have pickleball on that night.
That's good.
I think I have to check out this pickleball game.
You should. Yep, I can be here.
All right, we're all locked in.
Lock it in.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Tomorrow is the big meet the candidates. We're excited to see 3 of them.
Can we make it? Oh yeah. Oh, sorry.
No,
Could it be a little bit later?
Yeah, absolutely. We can change it a little bit. Well, but
We'll
for
put it up on
Sotera,
the Facebook. We'll put it up on the Facebook page.
fantastic, guys. Thank you for joining us for Who Gives a Vote week 3, and let's look forward to week 4 and as the pre-polling is open.